Hi boys and girls, welcome back to Miss Mari's classroom. Today we will have a read aloud and a reading lesson. That covers two components of your literacy block. My name is Miss Mari. I'm a literacy teacher development specialist with the Elementary Curriculum and Development Office, Houston Independent School District. Today's lesson objectives are: we will analyze plot elements in a narrative poetry. We will explain the author's purpose and message within a text. We will infer the theme or multiple themes in a poem. Here are the other key objectives for the day. Let's start with a short recall of the different story genres we already know, starting with fantasy and adventure, fairy tale, play, poetry, and realistic story. Now let's recall the different elements and structures that we find in each of the genres. It's time for a genre study on poetry. Poetry can tell a story, describe a situation, or appeal to the senses. You have already recognized some elements of poetry in many poems you have read before. It is important that we identify these poetic elements to help us better understand and enjoy a poem. Poems are written in lines. In many poems, these lines are grouped in sections called stanzas, which are like paragraphs in prose text. Here are the literary devices that we find in poems: rhyming words, rhythm, imagery, alliteration, onomatopoeia, and repetition. Today, we will read a narrative poetry called Bartholomew Blue. Bartholomew Blue is written by Emma Watson Hamilton. This was taken from a 2014 Star Release text. Here are the characteristics of a narrative poetry. It tells a story. It includes story elements. It uses figurative language and poetic techniques. It is written in different points of view. It includes author's thoughts and feelings, and the purpose is to entertain. To help us make connection to the new information we are learning today, let's activate prior knowledge. In the past lessons, we have studied and learned about different comprehension strategies that we use to understand the text or stories we read. Today, we will be applying and practicing different strategies to help us understand the text better. Let's talk about theme. The theme is the main message, lesson, or moral of the text. Sometimes an author clearly states the theme. Sometimes it's implied, and the reader has to figure it out using text evidence. We use text clues to figure it out. We ask questions like, what happens to the character? How do the characters react? What do the characters learn? And how do the characters grow or change? We also ask, what is the author trying to teach me? Authors don't always state a theme directly. Instead, they imply it and rely on readers to infer or figure it out themselves. Making an inference involves combining readers' own knowledge and experiences with what they read in order to come to a conclusion. To infer theme, readers need to use everything they know about the text setting, events, and characters or subject to identify a larger message about real life. The plot of the story or a narrative poem helps us understand the message or the theme. Understanding the key elements like setting, characters, plot, conflict, and resolution of a narrative poem helps the reader determine the message or the messages that the author is trying to convey. To find the theme of the story, we ask questions like, what did the character or subject learn? What did I learn? Let's review a strategy called Notice a Note, Signpost. Sometimes characters in stories act in the opposite way or different from the way the readers would expect someone to act. These contrasts tell something important about the character, the plot, setting, or theme. Contrasts and contradictions. Why would the character feel or act this way? Authors sometimes repeat certain things such as events, images, or words. Recognizing repetition is important because it might give the reader a better understanding of the setting or the character, or it might reveal a big idea about a story. This signpost is called again and again. Why might the author bring this up again and again? That's a question you ask when you notice and note something that is repeated in a text. Today, we are going to apply notice and note in action. You will look for things in the text or clues that will help you remember the signpost and why it is important to the selection. You will annotate and write your ideas, so be ready with a pencil and a paper. Let's unlock vocabulary words. Our word is confounded. Confounded is an adjective. Confounded is a feeling when someone is confused, perplexed, or bewildered. An example in a sentence is, I didn't finish my task because I was confounded by an unforeseen difficulty. Confounded. The next word is berserk. Berserk is an adjective. It means out of control with anger or excitement. It also means wild or frenzied. An example in a sentence is, the mother bear went berserk when she couldn't find her cub. Berserk. Let's set a purpose before we read. As we read today, pay attention to the different elements of the poem and determine its meaning in context. Analyze the plot and pay attention to the characters' feelings, thoughts, and actions. Ask the questions, how do the characters change during the plot? And do they change at all? Think about the theme of the text. Find the deeper meaning of the text by asking yourself, what did the character learn? And what did I learn? Let's read Bartholomew Blue by Emma Watson Hamilton. Let's read stanza 1. Bartholomew Blue was a gentleman who could never decide what he wanted to do. Mornings began in a terrible way as he tried to decide what to wear for the day. Which trousers, what shirt, and which socks and what shoes. Bartholomew just wasn't able to choose. In the first stanza, the author introduced the main character, Bartholomew Blue. The author gave us some information about the character's feelings and actions. Lines 2 and 6 tells us about his actions, and line 3 tells us about how he feels. Based on stanza 1, the character Bartholomew has trouble making decisions. I see that the problem in the poem was introduced in stanza 1. Let's annotate. When you annotate, you can highlight important words, underline sentences, encircle phrases, or simply write your ideas. I will simply summarize the information I learned from stanza 1 and write my notes. From what I gathered in stanza 1, Bartholomew has trouble making decisions. Let's read stanza 2. Completely confounded, he'd settle once more on what he had chosen the morning before. He'd go down to breakfast a little bit smelly and try to decide what to put in his belly. 2 fried eggs and bacon, some cinnamon bread. He'd end up with yesterday's oatmeal instead. In this stanza, I am noticing a contrast and contradiction. Our character is acting in the opposite way or different from the way I would act if I was him. At this time, I stopped and noticed and note contrast and contradictions and asked myself, why would the character feel or act this way? The problem with our character Bartholomew is that he feels confounded with his actions. He doesn't seem to like what he does, but he doesn't do anything to fix it. An evidence to support my thinking is on line 6. Completely confounded, he'd settle once more. Remember that good readers stop to notice and note contrast and contradictions. Based on the information in stanza 2, what can you infer about Bartholomew's character? As you think of your response, use the sentence stem. Based on the information in stanza 2, I can infer that Bartholomew is blank. Before we continue reading, let's annotate stanza 2. How will you summarize stanza 2? Take your pencil and paper and write your idea. Let's read stanza 3. Each hour would bring yet another decision. What program to watch on today's television? What method of transport to travel to work? Bartholomew worried he might go berserk. And still he would choose what he'd chosen before until life started seeming a terrible bore. The first 3 lines of the stanza talked about Bartholomew's indecisions. These clues make me stop to notice and note repeated ideas. Signpost again and again. I ask myself a question. Why might the author bring this up again and again? What does line 4 and 6 tell you? What is the poet trying to convey? As you think of your response, use the sentence stems. Line 4 and 6 tell me blank. Or the poet is telling me blank. Let's annotate stanza 3. What is the problem in stanza 3? What are the repeated ideas in stanza 3? Take out your pencil and paper and write your ideas. Let's read stanza 4. As time trickled by him, things didn't improve. For the less he would try things, the less he would move. His suit becomes smellier day after day. His shoelaces frayed and his socks turned to gray. He longed for excitement, a fresh point of view, but habit prevailed and he chose what he knew. In most stories, characters show some changes within the plot. In most cases, characters' actions reflect efforts in finding resolution to a conflict. Bartholomew Blue is having conflict with himself. What is the contradiction in this stanza? Which line or lines show you contradictions? Explain why you think that is a contradiction. Remember your notice and note signpost, contrast and contradictions. Your sentence stem is, the contradiction or contradictions in this stanza is or are blank because blank. Let's annotate stanza 4. How will you summarize stanza 4? Take out your pencil and paper and write your ideas. Let's read stanza 5. Soon, cobwebs began to appear here and there, and one day a bird built a nest in his hair. Before poor Bartholomew knew what to do, another bird parked on his head, and then two. Cardinals, blue jays, and sparrows galore, followed by chickadees, finches, and more. Remember that earlier we talked about paying attention to the characters' feelings, thoughts, and actions. How do they deal with the conflict, and how do they come up with a resolution? At this point in the text, what do you think is the message the author is trying to convey? Can you already infer what the theme of the poem is? Changes are happening in this part of the poem. How does Bartholomew Blue change in this part of the poem? Or does he change at all? Let's annotate stanza 5. How does Bartholomew Blue change in this part of the poem? Does he change at all? Annotate stanza 5 by writing what happens to Bartholomew Blue. Take out your pencil and paper and start writing. Let's read the last stanza, stanza 6. Bartholomew stood there, stuck fast in his boots, and before very long, he began to grow roots. Then, just as the birds on his head had assumed, he sprouted with branches and leaves, and he bloomed. Bartholomew Blue is a tree to this day, but at least now he gives off a fragrant bouquet. What idea does the poet convey through the description of Bartholomew in lines 25 through 30? As you think of your response, use the sentence stem. The idea that the poet convey through the description of Bartholomew in lines 25 through 30 is blank. What do you think about the ending of the poem? Was it anything that you expected? What do you think our character Bartholomew Blue learned in the end? What have you learned? Hold on to your thoughts because we are going to discuss that later. Go back to your notes and annotations in all of the stanzas. Your annotations will help you summarize the plot of the poem. Using your notes, write a brief summary of the poem Bartholomew Blue. Pick up your pencil and paper and begin writing. Take 5 minutes to write your summary. Let's discuss. Read these lines from the poem. His suit became smellier day after day. His shoelaces frayed, and his socks turned to gray. What does the imagery used in these lines mean? Your response will be, the imagery used in these lines mean blank. Which trousers, what shirt, and which socks and what shoes? The repetition in this line emphasizes the idea that Bartholomew is blank. Your response will be, the repetition emphasizes the idea that Bartholomew blank. Let's practice. We will use the poem and the theme graphic organizer from HMH. We will complete the graphic organizer by answering all the questions. The focus of this activity is to figure out the theme of the poem using what we know about the plot. Let's answer the first question. In your own words, describe what the story or poem was about. Use your notes and annotations during our read aloud. Give yourself 2 minutes to write your answer. Let me share with you my answer to the first question. The poem is about Bartholomew Blue who has trouble making decisions. He could not make decisions that he ends up doing the same thing over and over again. Now let's fill out the next part of the graphic organizer. We will answer the question, what happens to the character? Again, you may use your notes and annotations to complete this part. Give yourself another 2 minutes to write your answer. Okay, let me share with you my answer. The character Bartholomew Blue did not change throughout the poem. Despite his contradictions, he continued doing the same thing until one day he turned into a tree. It's time that I realize the deeper meaning of the poem. What is the message that the poet is telling me, and what did I learn? The plot tells me that Bartholomew wanted to change, but his indecisions did not serve him well in the end. I think that it is too late now for him to change. He had a lot of chances to do something about his problem, but he never did. I feel bad for him, but as the saying goes, regrets always come in the end. And in the end, you only regret the chances you didn't take. What do you guys think? Now it's your turn. This is your independent practice. You will answer the rest of the question. What lesson does the character learn? What is the message or theme? Remember that the theme is implied in the poem. The author did not state the theme. Your job is to use evidence from the text to make an inference and find the theme of the poem. Again, you may use your notes and annotations to guide you as you complete this activity. Set your timer for 5 minutes to complete this activity. Here's an extended activity for you. Read the poem Bartholomew Blue one more time. Go on a word hunt. Find sensory words in the text and list them under the headings look, feel, sound, taste, and smell. Amazing work! See you next time here in Miss Mari's classroom.